There you go.
Okay, Bob, you ready?
I am all set.
Jan, you ready?
I'm ready.
Olivia, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, then. Welcome to the Preservation Board regular meeting for Monday, March the 24th. Bob, would you call a roll so we can determine who's here?
Richard Callow,
Present.
Captain Hamaker,
Present.
new member Stan Fowler,
Present.
Mike Colleen,
Present.
and Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Awesome. You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, take a look at the agenda. Does anybody need to recuse themselves from consideration of any of these items? Is everybody okay with the order of these items? Okay, hearing no objections and no recusals, this will be our agenda. Commissioners, has anybody read the minutes from February 24th, 2025? And if so, is there a motion?
Just want to note, David Richardson has entered the Zoom.
Hello. Hi, David.
Hello.
Has anybody read the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes, the February minutes.
Is there a
Second.
Catherine, second.
Motion Richardson, Hamaker second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Bob, call a roll.
Richard Callow,
Aye.
Captain Hamaker,
Aye.
David Richardson,
Yes.
Mike Colleen.
Yes.
Can Stan vote since he was not here last time?
I'd abstain, I guess.
Yeah.
It
Good call.
Abstain.
depends. He might have watched the whole thing.
I
Probably
did.
did know Stan.
I did, but I'll abstain.
Okay. And then Alderman Narayan
Yes.
and Mike Colleen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Director's report.
First off, I want to recognize formally Stan Fowler, who is our new member of the Preservation Board. He is comes from us. He served on the Planning Commission as well, and he is also an engineer. So we got an engineer again. It's awesome. So we're happy to have Stan on board. He's super engaged. He's been great to work with that Planning Commission when I've had to present there. So super happy to have Stan on board. So welcome, Stan.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Welcome.
Okay. Yeah. Next up, I need to do some quick house cleaning, so to speak. The May meeting falls on the holiday, so we need to pick a different date. Are you guys okay with the 19th? It's the Monday before. If you want to just mull this over, I can send an email out, but I just want to note that since we do have that conflict with the holiday, we do need to
Let's
move
do a
the-
mull because I have to check on something.
Sounds good. I just want to make sure to not do like that Tuesday afterward, because then that's tied to the holiday weekend. So I don't want to mess it up. So I'll send an email out, but just mull it over in your head. Let's shoot for the 19th if possible. Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. And then one more thing before we start. So if you are in the Zoom and you're in the chat and you wish to speak on an item, please send me a chat with just your name and the item you want to speak on. And so after we go through our presentation, the applicant will present, and then you'll be able to speak at a certain time if you wish. So if you want to just send me a chat directly stating you know your name again and the item you want to speak on, that'd be great. And I'll have you down so you can then speak when we have public comment on an item. So that's what I've got.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's begin this meeting with a preliminary review. 3313 Missouri.
Yes. Jan, you're all.
I'm on, okay. This is as I said, a preliminary review to construct a two-story infill house on this rather unattractive site at the moment, in the center of the Benton Park National Register and Local Historic District. You notice the grade of the property is quite substantial, and that is being maintained in the proposed new construction. Are you advancing, Bob?
Yeah, I'm doing the advancing for you.
And this is the location, and you can see that the other unusual condition is that on the south side, there are a number of vacant lots. So the south side of this proposal will be entirely exposed to street view. It will be brick at the request of the neighborhood and by the Cultural Resources Office. Next. Another shot of the existing with a small house to the north. We have received some comments from the Benton Park neighborhood. They would like to see more brick than is being proposed currently on the north elevation, because obviously this being a two-story house, some of it will be visible over the top of the smaller house next door. Next. And this is just some context shots. This is north of the site. Again, the terrace continues down the block. Next. And to the north as well. That tire here marks the current proposed site. Next. And this is the context opposite, which is much more established. And keep going, Bob. We're proceeding from north to south. These are a couple of 1960 rehabs of 1960 HUD-funded properties that were always non-contributing and still are. Next. And then this lovely mid-19th century building. So the context is really good on the block, except for these few vacant lots on the to either side of the site. Next. Now we're looking from the south to the north to give you an idea of the block. And next. This is the site plan. You can see that it complies with the setback and is generally in appropriate arrangement with the remainder of the buildings on the block. Next. And this is the streetscape showing the building, where it says proposed, and the context. So there is an enormous gap between the two. Hopefully that will be developed at some point, but at the moment we have to take it as we find it. And that was the reason for the request to do brick on the side elevation, which normally we would not require. Next. The front elevation. Now, we have identified a number of close historic model examples here. There is not one specific building that has been chosen to be copied, but you can see by looking at this that the architectural details of the front facade are very similar to many buildings in the Benton Park Historic District. Next. And an aerial view of the site. Next. And these are several of a number of model examples that both the developer and our office has identified. They're two bay front facades with front entries. And the proposed building is entirely in keeping with the architectural details of these examples. Next. And this is the south elevation, which will be brick and has a number of windows adjusted in bays, which would be typical of a historic building as well. Next. This is the side that faces the existing building. And the proposal right now is to return the brick 6 feet, which is essentially the distance between this building and the adjacent building. That is generally what our office requires in order to give the appearance from the street of a fully brick building, while not asking for a lot of brick that isn't going to be visible. However, I will note that one of the suggestions from the Benton Park neighborhood is that there be more brick on this elevation because of the fact that this is a 2-story that's being inserted next to a 1.5 stories. So more of this wall will be visible than would be ordinarily seen. Next. And just to tie it in, there will be a garage that will be at the back of the property. Part of it will be below grade and it will not be visible from the street. I think that might be it. So the staff is recommending the preliminary approval be granted with a couple of conditions. And one is that the brick return on the northeast corner, the same distance as the north elevation, which it does. And that the concrete foundation be painted. Concrete foundations are allowed under the standards, but they need to be painted, and that's just not part of the initial proposal. I'm sure that the developer probably intends to do that. And that final plans, colors, and materials are approved by the Cultural Resources Office. Questions?
Questions for Jan? Okay. Is the applicant present?
Greg is present. Mr. Crawford, do you want to say anything?
Well, let's see if we have any questions for him.
Okay. Yeah, there's Greg.
Okay, questions for the applicant?
Plan on painting the foundation.
Did you hear that? Mr.
Greg?
Crawford?
I didn't hear you.
What the conditions
Hear you.
that, and one of the requirements of the standards is that you would paint the foundation, a stone color. Are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Any further questions of the applicant, commissioners? Bob, is there anybody in the waiting room who wants to speak about this?
Yes, Tim Mulligan is here from the Benton Park Neighborhood Association.
Okay. Tim, you're up.
Thank you. We reviewed this at a building review committee meeting, I believe last week or 2 weeks ago. And that was the one observation that the committee members came up with regarding the north side of the proposed house is that it's being built or constructed next to a building that is 1.5 stories. And the line demarcation of brick to siding is going to be rather obvious or apparent, as you're traveling south, on Missouri. So that was, the, I guess, realization that we saw and that we would like to see, that brick, continue, further back, just to better conceal. I believe we had a similar home that was approved on the Lemp near the, it was rumored to be part of the Underground Railroad, the infill work that went on over there 6 or 8 years ago. And I think similarly, a 2-story, infill was built next to, the 1-story, home there. And, that was the solution or requirement, that we came up with, for that property. So, I think, the front of this home is going to be attractive. It's going to be very monumental, just by virtue of how, how tall it will be above the street. And so, that's our recommendation.
Anybody else in the waiting room, Bob?
No, sir. That's it.
Okay, commissioners, can we have a motion? Commissioner Richardson?
That the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval to the proposed design as it complies with the majority of the Benton Park standards for new construction, with the condition that the point return the same distance on the north elevation as the distance from the adjacent building, i.e. 6 or 7 feet, and that the foundations be painted a stone color, and that the final plans, colors, and materials are approved by CRO.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion Richardson, second Hamaker. Is there any discussion?
So I'm sorry, David, are you saying half the distance between those buildings,
So the,
where there's that huge void?
that's on the north side, Mike.
On the
So,
north side, got
This
it.
side over here.
like 6 or
This-
7.
Okay, on the other side, you already have plenty of bricks over there, right, Bob?
Yeah, this is all brick on this south side.
Okay, sorry, yeah, got it. I'm with you.
Any further discussion? Bob, would you call a roll on the motion, please?
Okay. David Richardson? David Richardson? Sorry. Can't say your name right, David. David Richardson, you're saying yes. We can't hear you though.
Saying yes.
There you go. Hey. Sorry. Catherine Hamaker,
Yes.
Mike Colleen,
Yes,
Stan Fowler,
Yes.
Alderman Ryan,
Yes.
Richard Callow.
Yes.
I think that's everybody.
Okay, thank you, commissioners.
Thanks,
Let's-
guys.
Let us move to an appeal. And we'll proceed slightly differently in that we will ask staff, those who testify, and the appellant to affirm or swear that they're telling the truth, and that the appellant and staff will introduce everything they want on the record for the record.
Will do.
Okay.
I want to, again, Bob Bettis with staff. I will tell the truth. I want to again,
Wait, before we do proceed,
oh, hey,
who did that board?
which board?
The one, go back one thing.
That's not great. Let's not look at that. Let's ignore that. Let's pretend that didn't happen.
Okay, proceed.
It's a lot of apostrophes. Bob Bettis with staff. I'll tell the truth. I want to enter into the record ordinances 64689 as amended by 64925, which is our enabling ordinance. The ordinance for Skinker to Bolivar, which is 57688 as amended by 70821, my presentation and the staff report. I do want to enter in the names of some correspondence, but I like to do that towards the end when I do my recommendation. Is that okay? Or should I do that now?
Yes.
Do you have a
End
preference?
is fine.
Great. And I want to, again, if you want to speak on this item and you're in the room, you're not the applicant, please send me a chat with your name so I know who to call when we have the public comment portion, okay? All right. So to the item itself, the property in front of you is 6200 McPherson Avenue, located in Skinker to Bolivar. It's also over in the Parkview portion of Skinker to Bolivar, just to the west of Skinker. This is the subject property. The proposal is to install a stone retaining wall along the front at the sidewalk line that would kind of hug the curve that goes around the parcel. As you can see from the site plan, this is kind of at the entrance to the neighborhood, and the parcel is slightly curved as it addresses McPherson and towards Waterman. So the wall would be curved to follow the shape of the parcel at the street. To show you kind of context and visibility, you can see the property looking through the gates from Skinker back to the property. So you can see it down here on the bottom. You can also see it through the fencing along Skinker as well. So it's a very prominent site. So I know the applicants will speak more on this, and it's probably part of their rationale for doing this, but this really is kind of like the entrance to the neighborhood. With some more context for you, this is on the street looking to the north and to the south as well. The picture at the top shows the street to the south, and the picture at the bottom shows the street as it goes to the north. So mostly flat or slightly sloped lots. I would say that for the most part, maybe, the subject property might have the steepest slope around there, which is, again, very subtle. This is a close-up shot of that parcel of that site showing where the wall will go. And you can see the subtle nature of the slope itself. And again, this is a shot looking at the site, looking kind of to the northwest. So again, you can see it from all angles. This is from the submitted application. This just kind of gives you the extent of the retaining wall. Again, it will be curved to match the shape of the parcel. I don't want to go through this too in depth because you're going to have this again with the applicant showing you their proposal. I will note that the wall is not dry stacked. It's natural stone with coursing and mortar joints. But this gives you a sense of it. 2.5 feet tall max where it goes. We'll have these end piers with lighting fixtures on top. They will tie into those existing knee walls that you see that flank the stairs that come off the sidewalk. So the wall would tie into those. I guess proposal. This is a sense of the stone veneer. Again, it's coarse. You can add mortar joints to it to have an appropriate appearance in terms of stone retaining walls historically. This was in the submitted application showing kind of an example of what they're going for the appearance. This is also a sample of the lighting fixtures they wish to use on the end piers, kind of in keeping sort of with the style of architecture of the building. So that's what they're proposing. And here's the site. So going through the ordinance, it doesn't comply in a few things. Essentially, the front yards, with most historic district standards, it says that you cannot alter unaltered front slopes. And that's kind of what it says here as well. We're relatively sure that this front yard is unaltered at the sidewalk line. So the introduction of the wall would obviously interrupt that natural slope that you do see. So it does not comply in that sense. There's also a caveat in the code that says that if there are 50% or more of the parcels around it on the block, if they've had walls put in, you could do it. But by my count, there are less than 50% of the lots around this that have had retaining walls installed. And any retaining wall that you may see, I want to just put this out here now, was not approved by our office or was done so before it was a historic district, grandfathered in, or done without permits or review. So just want to lay that out there now before the question gets asked. Back to the code. It also talks about, you can do, like, if you have like a landscaping issue with some runoff, you can do a low 8-inch curb at the sidewalk line. Obviously, given that the fact the wall is 2.5 feet, it doesn't comply with that height to kind of deal with any kind of runoff issue. So 8 inches is allowed in the code. What's being proposed is too tall. In terms of what does comply, natural stone is an allowed material. That's being proposed, which is appropriate, does comply. And also any new wall is supposed to have a vertical face, and this wall would have a vertical face. So it complies in those two regards, but in the other regards with the height and the unaltered slope does not comply. So given that, staff is recommending that the board uphold the director's denial. We do not have any official comment from the Snicker-DeBolivar Review Committee. I like to always, check in and make sure that they're aware of what's going on, and they're aware, unfortunately, they have not met collectively to provide a formal comment from that committee regarding the project. From what I gather, they're going to meet later this week, but we do not have formal comment from the neighborhood, from that committee. I do have, and you were all sent, I have, oh, sorry, I gotta let Chairman Robinson just got here. Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm doing all the fun Zoom tasks here, so bear with me. Okay. Mr. Robinson's in the chat, or in the room. We have received letters of opposition to the proposal and support of the staff's denial. You were all sent that. The applicant also has these letters as well, but I do want to read in their names for the record. A letter of opposition from Sarah Kim Margolis, John and Aaron Wright, Nathan Cohen, Catherine Miller, Beth Fagan, Terrence Niehoff, I apologize, Bill Seibert, Ken Kuntz, and Judy Little, all letters of opposition to the project. So any questions for me regarding the project?
Before we get to questions, Bob, would you repeat your recommendation, please?
I recommend that the board uphold the directed denial of the installation of a new retaining wall.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions of Bob?
Any letters of support, Bob?
None that I have personally. The applicant, I believe, and you were also, just to clarify, you were all also sent a copy of their presentation early or last week when I sent out the agenda packet. So I believe they have some reference to some support they may want to discuss when they do their presentation. But I have not received any direct letters of support for the project.
And looking ahead just slightly, are there people in the waiting room waiting to speak on this, Bob?
So I don't have anybody in the room queued up to speak. I know there are people, let's see, I know at least I'm looking at the chat, so there you go. I do not have one person who wishes to speak on the item,
Okay.
besides the applicants. I
Appellant.
got you, Mike, thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the appellant, please.
Jason, they had a bunch of, maybe some porch lights and stuff they're gonna replace. Is that before us, or is that your?
No, sir. It's just the retaining wall at this point in time. That's something I was part of the application, was just that. The retaining wall and those lights on the actual retaining wall itself, but nothing beyond that is all we're seeing today. And Mr. Martin, you just let me, Mr. Martin, I'm sorry. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Mr. Bettis, please set up whatever we need to do next, and I'll speak on behalf of my wife and I for this project.
Okay, just tell me to advance and I'll move the slides accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Bettis. My name's John Barton. Along with my wife, we are the applicants for this particular improvement project. And as the board has requested, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God in my presentation here today. My wife and I moved into the Skinker to Bolivar community, I think 20 some odd years ago. We purchased this property off the courthouse steps as part of a renovation or desire to renovate our community even more. Obviously, it's a lovely home and a hallmark home. And so we spent the better part of 12 years restoring it. Part of that restoration effort has included both exterior and interior improvements. This home appears at the front of the neighborhood, which is a rather dark area. It sits between two of the street lights, which are commonly complained about within the neighborhood as a result of some petty crime and other issues that take place as a result of a lack of lighting. Our home being in the front is among the darkest in the neighborhood as you drive by Skinker and look in. We have endeavored to brighten our home by using various landscape lights and uplighting and things of that nature. But those of you who live in the city and tried to install pathway lights along the sidewalk know that some of the pet-friendly neighborhoods can wreak havoc on those. Eventually, given the issues we've had with the sloping in the front of the house, we decided on this project sometime late last year and have been working through the process through not only our neighborhood, but the Skinker to Bolivar Community Council, and now this group, in order to advance our improvement project. So as Mr. Bettis pointed out, this isn't a situation where we went ahead and installed the retaining wall and then beg forgiveness from you later. This is an issue where we have the ability and the opportunity to improve not only our home, but the neighborhood by advancing this particular project as not only a beautification and a historically appropriate retaining wall, but something that would add so much more to the community and to the neighborhood as people drive by Skinker to get to Washington University or Forest Park or the Delmar Loop and look in and see a bright neighborhood and a lovely historic wall with the uplighting that it requires. When my wife and I moved into 6200 McPherson, the retaining slope that exists there actually didn't have lawn on it at the time. It had railroad ties embedded into the berm. And next on one side, on the other side, it had loose poured concrete. Now, over the years, we've removed those because of different aesthetic preferences we had and realized that they were put in place by the prior owners who had the home for over 50 years as a result of runoff issues. We've experienced the same thing. we thought this project would be a great opportunity for us to address a number of issues. Mr. Bettis, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slide. And thank you for your technical assistance today. This is an overview project of the wall. Don't take it at face value. It does follow the curvature of the sidewalk. It is a retaining wall. I know there's been some confusion about, is it just a standalone wall? It is not. There will be dirt that backs up to it. Those lights that we have proposed on the column would include, those are dusk to dawn lights. This is not low voltage lighting. It's 120 volts. There is a hedgerow that appears behind that wall. That's just for the computer. It's actually going to be a low-lying bed. Mr. Bettis, if you would advance to the next slide, please. You can see here from the angle that at the termination point of each of these walls, which goes approximately 42 feet on each side of our center staircase, our lot is much larger than that, but due to the realities of constructing a natural stone wall with a natural veneer of this nature, there has to be some limitations. Plus, we want it to be appropriate to the size of the home and the neighborhood. So you can see the design elements. You've all been provided with some of those. One of the things I would comment on is that while this is going to be a veneer stone, the stone will be several courses, but the courses will be a rough hewn followed by a smooth course, then another rough hewn to match the existing stone of the home. So a natural quarried stone. If you could advance to the next one, please. And I should point out, if you could go back one. I'm sorry, Mr. Bettis. Part of the benefit of this wall, in addition to beautification and highlighting the historic features of the home and the community as a whole, is that the undercap lighting will provide pathway lighting for those that walk across the sidewalk. At this point in time, where that sidewalk is at the tip of my property, which is my home, is set back far from the sidewalk. And then across the street is another park that's called Rothschild Park, which does not have any illumination. And then we get to Skinker. It's among the darkest in the neighborhood. So to help improve walkability, the welcoming nature of the neighborhood, we have included these under cap lights that won't be visible, but that will add not only enhancement in terms of lighting, but walkability. Now, if you wouldn't mind, to the next slide, Mr. Pettis. The top image that you see is actually in our backyard. It's a spa. We had a similar feature added to our home, and we did an additional spa in the backyard where we had natural quarried stone give us a rough and smooth hewn to match the home. That's exactly what we're proposing to do in our front yard. The bottom section just gives you an idea of the type of construction that we're talking in terms of engineering to ensure that this wall will be present for decades to come and in good working order. The drainage, stonework, foundation, things of this nature. This is not simply there's over 40 retaining walls in my neighborhood, some of differing, composite materials or brick. This is a little bit more enhanced than that. There's cinder block foundation, then the front veneer and the drainage system to ensure that it is properly maintained over the years, along with obviously the electrical lighting for the enhancement that we're proposing. Next slide, please, Mr. Bettis. You can see we've got the stone just marked here. If you'd go to the next slide. This image shows where the Rothschild Park is in conjunction with our home. You can see the home in the background and where we've proposed the lighting. The slide is intended to show you where the street lights are on either end. They're in blue here in the annotated image that we see here. The placement of the lights by design and intention is essentially 50% of the way in between the street light and the center of the home, and then again at the entranceway to the stairs that lead up to the home to add maximum benefit in terms of lighting and making it a more welcome environment for people that do enter the home. We believe the lighting will serve as a crime deterrent. We have cars that get rifled through quite often because if you ever walk down Skinker and look into Parkview, you'll notice that the streetlights are set very far apart, and it's generally a dark community that invites, at times, individuals that might come in and rifle through cars or do petty crime. The solution to that has been through the Parkview Board of Agents and others to ensure that we get as much lighting as we can into the area. This project achieves that goal for the neighborhood. Also, this is a primary walkway for a lot of students at night. Every time a concert lets out or Blueberry Hill closes, we've got students walking from the Loop towards Washington University, take this way. It'll add lighting in that environment as well. And not only that, but make the neighborhood more welcoming as you look in. Go to the next slide, please, Mr. Bettis. This is just highlighting the location of the lighting features, both the column lights, and then we have the undercap lighting to show how it will illuminate the area. On the ends, we're proposing putting trees of a colorful nature with uplighting that is appropriate for that particular landscape enhancement that will not only improve the value of our home, but all of the homes in Parkview. I think Mr. Bettis mentioned this is a primary home as you enter the monuments. There's a stone wall around Parkview. I'm sure you all know about it. And then there are these monuments. As you pull in, our home sits back as you enter. And so we are envisioning that this particular project will enhance that, that entryway. Next slide, please. We think the lighting that we have chosen is historically appropriate. We took this picture to show you that on the monuments, there are some wonderfully beautiful lights that are there, but they don't cast much light, particularly in the neighborhood. At nighttime, and particularly once the leaves come in, that is a very dark area. We've done our best with uplighting our home to try to make it brighter. This particular project would increase the illumination appropriately. The lights we are proposing have stained glass. They're not some blue bright lights, but appropriate lighting for the neighborhood and for our home for people that look into the neighborhood and seek to enter it. Next page, please. The lights we are proposing would carry through to the home itself and fit the historic design and character. We've intentionally tried to match them with the Art Deco style, and there's also some craftsman influences in the home. Really, the home is an amalgamation of different styles, but we've tried to pull off of that. And there's been no complaints that we've heard about the historic nature of the materials that we've selected or the appropriateness of the lighting that we've selected for the home. Next slide, please. This is just showing you the light feature. Next slide, please. This is our backyard. Just to give you an indication of the carry through. We've enhanced, obviously, the backyard to include the stone columns. This is just to show you the height. Those columns are approximately 32 inches high. Then the light fixtures would sit on top of it. Then you can see the stone cap. The material used in the backyard for this backyard project is not the natural stone that we are proposing for the front. I just want to make sure you understand that. But it would be a similar height. And as Mr. Bettis pointed out, our sloped yard really starts off flat and then becomes sloped around our stairwell that goes up to our walkway that then leads up to the main staircase to the home. That is an elevation of approximately 2 feet, a little bit more. We're proposing 2 feet 5 inches because of the capstone and obvious height issues. Next slide, please. We believe the benefits of the stone retaining wall will provide not only aesthetic beautification to the house, it will improve all of the landscaping features and anybody that looks into the neighborhood. It will increase the value of our home and of those in the neighborhood, but it allows the installation of the path and column lighting. We've struggled for the better part of a decade to try to figure out ways to create safe and appropriate lighting in that area for people that would use our sidewalk to no avail. This solves that problem. We have erosion and runoff that sends water across the sidewalk. It puddles. There's puddles there today. Yes, we had rain yesterday, but it's an endless puddle stream. Through the use of the appropriate drainage system behind the wall, we believe that that will address that issue or at least improve it drastically. And we think it'll also improve perception of not only Parkview, but the Skinker-Bolivar community and the city of St. Louis. This is a central corridor. There are a lot of neighborhoods in the corridor, and Parkview is very well kept up. You know, there's a difference between preservation and stagnation. We want to have an appropriately added improvement to our home that enhances and increases the historic benefit of it. Not simply allow what exists to be there simply because it's there. Others have had retaining walls in our neighborhood. Whether they asked permission or just ignored the ordinances, or what, we don't know. I've watched this board approve retaining walls in other neighborhoods that were already put up because of the cost that the individuals had put into it, even though it violated those particular historic district guidelines. I'm not asking for that. We're not looking to do that. We've gone to the Parkview neighborhood. We've gone to the Skinker to Bolivar Community Council. We're here seeking a variance because, as Mr. Bettis points out, this does not comport with the historic district guidelines. But we think you should allow the improvement nonetheless for the benefit of our community and for the perception of Parkview in our neighborhood. Next slide, please. One more. There we go. These are the ordinances that we understand are at issue. There is a minor elevation. There are grades in Parkview's neighborhood, and I'm focusing on Parkview because we're on the Parkview side of Skinker to Bolivar up till you get to Limits Walk. I've been on both sides in my life, but bottom line is within our neighborhood, there are a lot of flat properties with no slopes and then some with minor slopes. This particular enhancement would address that slope. We would be changing the grade. We're not challenging that. We acknowledge that. That's why we're here asking for this variance for this very important improvement project that would benefit the community in our home. 33% of the homes in the 6200 block of McPherson already have retaining walls, so we don't hit that 50% threshold. They got in before us or didn't ask permission or whatever the issue is. We're not here to address that point, but by allowing us to do that which our neighbors have already done would provide a great influence to not only the neighborhood, but to those that would try to follow all of the proper procedures to have something approved before they do it. There is a requirement to have a ramp if you're going to install a wall of this nature. That's just not, this home is not accessible in a number of ways, I can tell you. So adding that would not be appropriate in terms of not only the historic nature of the frontage, but the ability for anybody to ambulate that home once you get inside. Next slide, please. This is the neighborhood on the McPherson side. Oddly enough, my house, McPherson, sits on two lots. One lot's Waterman, one lot's McPherson. So somebody 120 years ago decided McPherson. So there we are. On the McPherson side, you can see other homes that have the retaining walls. We would be obviously in the front. Next slide, please. These are some examples of some existing walls within the Parkview neighborhood on the city side. Next slide, please. Of these homes that you see on this next slide, the retaining walls, 3 of them are on, I think, let me see here. Nope, go to the next slide, please. There we go. 3 of them are on McPherson. Just up the street from me before you get to Limits Walk in the Skinker to Bolivar neighborhood. It's not uncommon to see retaining walls or changes in grade. The changes in grade in the neighborhood include everything from retaining walls, loose stacked stones, composite brick, or frankly, stones and riverbeds, if you want to know. Next slide, please. In order to seek neighborhood approval and make sure our neighbors were okay with this project, the Parkview neighborhood has a wonderful Facebook listserv is what I would call it, but a website where there's 370 individuals who are neighbors. We posted the same plans that we provided to you on that board to get feedback from the neighborhood. We got feedback from the neighborhood, almost universally positive. I think there was one negative comment suggesting that this was in fact a fence. It's not a fence. It's not an isolated wall. It is actually a retaining wall. If you go to the next slide, please. Within the positive feedback that we received from the posting, 91% of the folks that responded to us, and their names are listed here in the materials. I could read them in the record, but they're in the record. You have them on your slides, and so for brevity's sake, I'm not going to. But not only from beautification to the lighting being a welcome enhancement to the neighborhood, but 91% of people that responded to this post were positive. This post has been up for over 3 weeks, And we solicited all of the neighbors in the neighborhood to find out, what do you think? Tell us, is this a good idea? Will you support it? 91%. Now, Mr. Bettis referenced some individuals that wrote some letters. None of those were sent to us. I'm sad to say that. I understand that they were sent to Mr. Bettis either over the weekend or today. I've been in meetings all day. I haven't had the benefit to read the comments that my neighbors would not share with us, but I understand they're part of the record now. I would urge this board to look at the 91% of people that were willing to respond in the open to us, give us their positive feedback, and not those that would stand against us and against the progress that we are trying to put forward for the benefit of not only the Parkview neighborhood, but the Skinker to Bolivar community and the city of St. Louis as a whole. Next slide, please. We met with the neighborhood board of agents. As you folks all know, the Parkview has its own indentures. We wanted to make sure we cleared everything. Originally, Parkview provided a conditional improvement of our project on February 14th of 2025. Conditional in that we comply with the university city requirement of height, no more than 2 feet. We pushed back on that because we're not in University City, and we wanted to have this capstone on this wall so that we could conceal the under lighting for the pathway. Eventually, after some back and forth, the neighborhood withdrew its conditional support on March 3rd of 2025 without a great deal of explanation. We asked to meet with them, and we did. We met with the board, both my wife and I met with the board in person to address any and all of their concerns, and we did. The Board of Parkview did not give the consent for this wall, citing the Skinker to Bolivar Community Council's historic guidelines, the very guidelines that we seek a variance from today. So we asked specifically if there were any Parkview specific prohibitions for this wall, knowing there's 40 some odd other walls. We received none. Now, I haven't had the benefit of reading whatever letters were sent to you today at the 11th hour, but none have been made brought to our attention so that we may address them. But we did address all of the concerns that the Parkview Board of Agents had during the meeting in person with our neighbors. And we believe they were all satisfactorily addressed, correcting things like, is it a fence? No, it's not a fence, and things of that nature. Next slide, please. I know there's been some discussion about, well, are slopes a historic part of the Parkview neighborhood? They're really not. They're not in the historic district application that was filed, but the walls were. The neighborhood has a mixture of flat properties and some slope properties. And then, of course, the retaining walls for those neighbors who elected to put them up to address the runoff and other erosion issues they have. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go through this in all great detail, but if you ever read the historic application for the National Register, you'll see that what is highlighted is the nature of the walls and the entranceway. We believe this project will enhance that, will add to the very historic issues that make Parkview such a welcome and historic community. Putting a stone wall in this spot, adding the brightness and the illumination of the appropriate lighting would benefit everybody. And it would add to the historic nature and character of the home, whereas the slopes are never discussed in this document. In fact, the word slope doesn't appear, but the word wall appears throughout. There's been some discussion. The neighborhood asked a question about, well, what about the curvilinear? It's a hard word to say, but basically, if you ever drive through Parkview, you know it's not a grid. It's all the streets curve. We're not changing the street. We're not changing the way this particular neighborhood flows. We're just adding a retaining wall with lighting feature in front of our home to add beautification. Next slide, please. If the wall and the placement of the wall as you look through the entranceway to Parkview would add a lot of illumination as you go through it. And if you go to the next slide, please. We would request that this board issue a variance of the Skinker to Bolivar Community Council's historic guidelines and allow us to do that, which many of our neighbors have already done, but this time add historically appropriate stone wall with stone veneer that matches the home, that adds lighting for safety and security, that controls any erosion issues that we have, and that improves the neighborhood for generations to come. We are here before you not because we stand in opposition of any one neighbor who's ever been brought to our attention, or because we seek to harm the community or our home. We are here before you because we care about Skinker de Bolivar. We have lived there for over 20 years on both sides of Skinker. We see an opportunity to improve our home, to add to the historic character of this property and this community. I know that from time to time you are asked to vote whether somebody can take the tiles off their roof and add shingles on and do other things that you have approved. We are not in that position, but we are in a position to benefit the community and enhance not only our home, but the neighborhood and the St. Louis outlook. And I think it needs it. And we would ask for your support. Please grant us our variance. Thank you.
Mr. Barton, for the record, which of the documents that you have presented would you like to introduce formally to the record?
All of them.
Olivia, is that satisfactory?
Mr. Barton, would you mind specifying, just so we have a clear record, what documents you're introducing into evidence for the
Yes,
record?
I provided Mr. Bettis with 24 slides. I think we've gone through all 24 of them. I know he embedded them into the presentation that I think is part of the agenda. We would ask that those be brought into the record, including the slide that identifies all of the homeowners that gave us positive responses to our Facebook post to show that the community stands overwhelmingly in support of this project. And we would ask that you do too.
Thank you very much. Bob,
Yes.
under what standards are we judging this?
The Skinker de Bolivar Historic District Standards.
Great, thank you. Do we have people in the waiting room?
We have Mr. Mike
Wait, hold on
Stevens.
One second.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Commissioners, do you have questions for the appellant?
Just have
I
one-
do.
Go for it.
Let's do one at a time.
Who would you like to go first?
Whoever speaks first.
I'll speak first. I'm good at that. Okay, so I was wondering if Mr. Barton could tell us a little bit more about both the erosion issues, and you mentioned that, so if you kind of went over that fairly quickly. We want to know a little bit more about what you've been experiencing. And also you said you mentioned failed attempts at lighting. I'd like to hear about those too, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for raising that. I'll start with the erosion issue. This is the property starts relatively flat at both ends of the horseshoe, we'll just call it. As you come towards the center, it is elevated where the first 3 steps that go to a platform. The nature of the slope is that the yard is relatively flat until you get to those 3 steps, and then there is I don't want to call it a steep slope, but as you can see from the image there, it then slopes down. The original, or I shouldn't say original owners, but the prior owners had the home for 50 years. And what they had done to address that was to turn virtually the entire front yard into a bed with mulch and railroad ties on the right side of the home. On the left side of the home, it appeared that cement bags were just poured into the ground to control and hold the dirt back. During an Operation Brightside event, to be honest with you, where they brought a dumpster to the front of our house, my wife and I got the gloves on and got dirty, and we lifted those railroad ties that had been rotting and we put them away, and we got rid of most of that cement block. The erosion issue is that you get runoff coming from there. It's difficult to grow grass. We have the soil that comes across the sidewalk. We have landscaping people that help us out with that to keep it as clean as we can, but it's a constant nuisance. It does also cause water to go and pool onto the old sidewalk. We've got a lot of slabs that have been replaced by par few, thankfully, but there are still quite a few that have dips in them. The runoff causes water to collect on the sidewalk in that area. When we get colder temperatures, it creates an icy hazard. By putting this retaining wall in the general area of slope with the irrigation, or not the irrigation, the French drain system that we're proposing, it is our hope to be in a position to direct this water out onto the street. The other thing you will note is, or may or may not note, is during that entire frontage of our home, there's not one storm sewer. You're going to have to go pretty far away from either side. So the water does collect there. Over the years, we have attempted to plant beds. We have put landscape stone to try to hold back. The landscape stone eventually falls and fails. This requires a more permanent solution, which is one of the reasons for our proposal. I'll switch to the failed attempts at landscape lighting. My wife might say I'm possessed with landscape lighting because I have attempted so many different ways to do this, but we have put up lighting on all of the trees that you see in that yard upon occasion. We have lighting on the fence posts. We replaced, there were no lights on the porch. We added some quasi-historically appropriate lights on there, something that we're going to add as part of this project to match the lights that we would like to put on the retaining wall. And then, of course, there's a giant light that's our porch light, essentially, but it doesn't cast much illumination. Over the years, if you've ever gone to Home Depot or Volt.com, I'll give them a plug, and bought landscape lighting, you know that the pathway lights generally come on a post, and we've installed different iterations of approximately 6 on each side to illuminate the pathway. We love dogs. We have dogs. Well, we have a dog now, and most of our neighbors have dogs. We're very supportive. So please, this is not a dispersion on anyone that has dogs. But if you have a dog and you walk a dog with a leash, which most everybody, including my wife and I, do, the landscape lights don't do well with dog leashes. So as the dogs walk by with the leash, they always get uprooted, the tops get knocked off, etc. The other thing is the lawn services and the lawn mowers chew those up. So over the years, we've attempted, I think, on 3 separate occasions to add appropriate pathway lighting. On all 3 occasions, they failed in one way or another. Thus, this landscape or hardscaping project would serve to alleviate that and provide the much needed brightness that we think would benefit the security and beautification of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any further questions for the appellant?
Can you go
Okay,
in a
thanks.
little bit more detail about what you removed from the front of the property? I know you said railroad ties. Was there additional landscaping up there that you removed maybe in the area to create some of the erosion problems?
Not to create, well, there were railroad ties that were on the ground on the right side of the home. Those were removed. I forget the exact number. I want to say it's on the order of 4 to 6, but certainly no more than that. I think they were each 6 to 8 feet in length with the 9-inch nails driven through them to create the barrier. At the time we acquired the property, they were in various states of disrepair and needed to be removed. I don't know if that created the runoff situation, but I don't believe it was helping it any because they were in various states of disrepair. So those were removed. The front right side of the house also had a number of different bushes, and it had there's an old picture from approximately 12 years ago. I think it's still online somewhere, that shows the property with very large pine bushes, what I'll call it, that consumed the front of the yard, and different plantings that went all the way down to the front with no grass, essentially entirely in front of that front porch area. So there was no grass on the lawn. On the left side, it was similar. It's just a mulch bed that went all the way back to the home. But on the slope for the left side, instead of using railroad ties, what appeared to be used, and I can only surmise what this was, but it was, there were globs of cement. So if you went to Home Depot and bought a bag of cement and you mixed it and you just poured it in a glob on the ground, that's what we're talking about here. Probably 20 or 30 of them on the slope itself to hold back the earth berm. We did remove those because they were unsightly, they were difficult, and for a number of reasons, you couldn't mow. They just created an issue, and quite frankly, the unsightliness of them is one of the reasons why we removed them. We attempted to remedy that situation by planting grass and also adding, there's some trees and different things that you can see in the foreground. those are some of the items we did within the last, I want to say we removed them 8 years or more ago. My wife might have a better memory than I do on that, but that's about right.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Barton, have you considered an 8-inch wall?
I have. I've considered an 8-inch wall, but that would not provide us an opportunity to A, really enhance the historic nature of the home, and B, conceal the landscape lighting that we would want to conceal to illuminate the sidewalk for people that wish to walk around the house. An 8-inch wall would still be low lying. If we added just well, first of all, I don't think it would be an 8-inch wall, it'd be an 8-inch curb that would go along that would not address any of the issues I believe that we're talking about. In one of the images that's been put before you, I think you can see that there is cobblestone that is approximately 6 to 8 inches that we had attempted just to hold back some of the erosion right in front of the main posts as you walk up the stairs. Those have not been successful in holding it back. So if we added an 8-inch curb along the walkway, we wouldn't have the columns with the column lights. So we'd have no lighting beautification. We'd have no natural stone beautification. Part of the benefit of having the wall be 22 feet 5 inches is that it will allow us to do 3 courses. If you look at the picture of our home, as you can see it here, and probably the best way is one of the columns that goes up on the side of the home. You'll see, as you probably have in many St. Louis homes, the marble is, the stonework is called Carthage marble from Carthage, Missouri, if you want to know. But it's a smooth course followed by a rough course of a larger size. Having the wall be 2 feet 5 inches allows us to have a rough, smooth, and rough course that matches the home and looks as though it had been there for 120 years. It also would allow us to conceal the lights for the pathway under the capstone, and then adding the column features with the exact same stone, rough and smooth hewn, this time 5 courses, adds to that feature and that beautification and the historic nature of that. If you go down some of the gated streets, you'll see this very feature in a number of the Washington Place, Kingsbury Place neighborhoods, which our neighborhood's a little bit more working class, although a higher end working class at the time that they were all created, certainly not as I guess monumental of homes, although I would say ours is one of them. This matches and is brought out by that particular desire to have that kind of a frontage that those larger homes have. So I think if we went with an 8-inch curb, we would lose the benefit we're going for. And I think it would detract from the historic nature of the home. And I'm not sure that there would be a good reason to do that.
Well, I mean, one good reason might be that it would comply with the ordinance.
That is true. But that's why we're here for the variance. I mean, if just leaving it alone would comply with the ordinance. Adding an 8-inch curb might comply with the ordinance, but our efforts here are to enhance what we have, to add to the historic nature of our home, to add lighting for security and safety, walkability, make it more of an inviting and welcome area, address the runoff. So we understand that this is a situation where we have to evaluate whether this retaining wall, as opposed to the 33% of the other homes on McPherson and those Ginker Bolivar neighborhood that have them, that's been done. We didn't put it up and say, forgive us, we went forward. We want to do this right. We think it's good for the neighborhood. We think it's good for our home. We think it's good for Ginker Bolivar. We think it's good for St. Louis. We think it's good for the WashU students. We hope you do too. And this is not taking away from the preservation of our home. This is not taking away from the historic character of the neighborhood. These slopes are not part of the historic registry. These slopes are not mentioned anywhere in that particular document. The walls are. And this particular retaining wall, as it's conceived, we're not doing this because it's, we're here because we care. We're here because we want to improve this home. We've taken on a life project. There was no heating, no air conditioning, no plumbing, no running water. I could go on and on when we moved in. Bottom line is, this is the next stage in the enhancement. And it's to address a concern that we've tried to for over 10 years, unsuccessfully. We know we've run into a historic guideline. We appreciate it and we respect it. And because we appreciate it, because we respect it, we've sought their guidance at the Skinker Bolivar Community Council. Violates the code. We understand that. We witnessed to Mr. Bettis. Here's what we'd like to do. He has got to say, no, you can't. Violates the code. We get that. We're here asking you to look at the code, look at what we're proposing, look at the home, look at the benefit of Skinker to Bolivar, look at the benefit to the Parkview community and all communities around, and give us the variance so that we can improve this home and not simply maintain the status quo.
Thank you. Further questions for the appellant? Okay, Bob, who's in the waiting room?
First up, we have Mike Stevens.
Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Mike Stevens. I won't belabor the point. I'd like to echo.
Mr. Stevens? Is your
Yes.
testimony going to be the truth?
Yes,
Proceed.
allow me to echo some of the comments of the neighbors. But first, by way of background, I'm a former member of the St. Louis County Historic Buildings Commission for several years. I was president of Parkview for 9 years during the Metrolink construction in the 2000s. I am currently the president of the Skinker to Bolivar Community Council, and I also sit on the I sit on the Skinker to Bolivar Historic District Review Committee, which has direct jurisdiction over this particular matter. I'm also the Parkview neighborhood representative to the Skinker to Bolivar Community Council, and the neighbors who submitted comments to you. Let me sort of summarize their points with a historical piece that hasn't really been addressed here. And first of all, I will say no one begrudges the applicant for improving their property. They've done a nice job with it. They've done nice improvements. They've done nice lighting with the property. Everyone in Parkview appreciates that, and we all work on our houses on a regular basis. I live in Parkview, right around the corner from this house. The neighborhood was developed by Julius Pitzman, who also did Pasadena Hills in North County, Compton Heights, Claverack Park, and Hampton Park, among others outside of St. Louis. And one of the items with which he is given significant credit is the curvilinear street pattern. And that is, as Mr. Barton said, a non-rectangular pattern. And the point of the curvilinear pattern was to have a vista approach to the visual aesthetics of the neighborhood as you drive in for two purposes. One, you get to see a lot of different housing styles. And two, the curvilinear pattern followed by Pitzman allows the natural slope of the landscape to be followed in the building of the houses and in the structure of any improvements on the property. And it allows the property to flow in its natural form. And that's why the streets are curved in these neighborhoods. That discussion is included in a document Mr. Barton cited, and that is the National Register nomination that was submitted in the 80s for the Parkview neighborhood. I believe it's on page 3 of item 8, which discusses that. This concept is also discussed in National Register bulletins and any other source you can find on Google. You'll see a discussion of the curvilinear pattern. But erecting a 2.5-foot retaining wall violates the intent of Pitzman as he developed the property. And I'm not here to be the naysayer. I didn't write the standards. Okay, those were already adopted. When we all moved to the neighborhood, we reviewed and understood those. You can't change the grade of the property, and as indicated in the design submitted by the applicant, clearly the grade of the property has changed. You simply can't build a retaining wall unless 50% of the lot owners on that block also have them. Or unless a landscape wall is included in some sort of a handicapped accessible feature. This plan violates all of those historic district standards. Again, we didn't write them. That's just the way they're written, and they're written for a reason. There aren't big retaining walls allowed because that violates the flow of the neighborhood as designed by the developers. I think that's probably indicated in the letters you've received in opposition. Are there retaining walls in Parkview? Sure there are. I believe most of those were built before the standards were enacted. I don't have a specific count, but I believe most of those were. And I think Mr. Bettis alluded to those in the staff report when he asked you to support the director's denial of this application. The survey I have that's probably in your material somewhere is that of the 85 Parkview homes in the city, there were approximately 7 with front landscaping or retaining walls. And of those, most are true retaining walls and look like they've been there forever. I don't just take my word for it. In the photos submitted by the applicant, most of those walls were small and narrow in scope. They weren't to this size. They didn't cover the entire front of the house. They were mostly retaining trees and some landscaping and some earth that was falling on the walkway down from the house, not out on the street. You can go do a survey yourself if you want. Most of those are true retaining walls that hold in erosion. I don't see any engineering reports in the applicant's presentation which would demonstrate some scientific basis for there being erosion. Does water fall off the property? Sure, it falls off all of our properties. I live in the neighborhood too. This slope is a gentle slope, as Mr. Bettit indicated in his presentation. It's not a drastic slope. I've never seen any erosion problem there. I've lived there since before the applicants did. I don't recall any retaining wall on that property. There are others on this in the Zoom chat who can speak to that, who go further back from me than I do. I remember some little gardens in the front. I don't remember any retaining walls being there. I don't recall any runoff issues in front of the property. Regarding the lighting, I don't know. I guess lighting is in the eye of the beholder, right? I was president of Parkview when we redid the lights that you're looking at right now. Those were the original gas lamps that were placed on new poles, and then electricity was fished up through there and ballast was inserted to light them. It was pretty dim. It's always been pretty dim. When it was gaslight, it was pretty dim from what I've read in the historical materials. We've replaced the electrical conduits in there. We had these big thick cables that sort of shorted out all the time, but it was always dim. But I remember when we did that project, there were a lot of people in Parkview who didn't want lights as bright as they are now. There was a lot of opposition to the brightness of how it exists today. The Bartons have 2 in front of their house. There are also the Skinker lights that were financed by WashU on the right-of-way. I thought it was too much light to begin with. When I was at Skinker to Bolivar, I actually voted against that many. I had advocated for a plan with less lighting because I thought it looked like a runway landing out there on Skinker. So the Skinker lights run right out in front of the applicant's house. The applicants have done a nice job of uplighting their house. It depicts the house very nicely, the uplights, and on the trees, it looks great. I don't see a lighting problem. If there is a lighting problem and they want to light it even more, there are other vehicles by which they can do that. There are other options available without this kind of a wall. I might throw in the Parkview indenture is very clear. It says no wall or hedge shall be erected in front of the building line. I mean, that's directly from the founders, and they're going to put a wall and a hedge that violates the Parkview indenture as well. I understand they've applied to Skinker to Bolivar. Anyway, I guess if we're counting who's for it and who is against it, I mean, we're obviously not appropriating into a Facebook war here. The applicants did post it on Facebook. Not all of our residents are on Facebook to begin with. Some of the people I know who sent in objection letters to you are not on Facebook. There were a very few people in the neighborhood who even responded to it. I think Mr. Barton said there were 91% of the people who responded approved of their plan, but not 91% of the people in Parkview responded on Facebook. It's probably less than 10% or maybe 15%. But regardless, without getting into a war of Facebook, clearly this project violates the standards, the Parkview indenture. The applicants did present at the Historic District Review Committee. I was there, I'm a member. We didn't take a formal vote. We took a straw vote. It was 4-0 against. The meeting ended without a formal vote being taken. We intended to consider it at a future meeting, but we haven't been able to schedule that yet. Your meeting here today occurred before we could schedule our next Historic District Review Committee. So in any event, based on that information I've received from Parkview residents, I don't see a compelling reason to grant a variance, and there hasn't been, the only application that is before Skinkard of Bolivar, and of course by this body, is the 2.5-foot wall that's presented today. There's been no additional application of something different that I've seen. That's all my remarks. Thanks. If anyone has any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer.
No, that's okay. Anybody else in the waiting room, Bob?
Yes, sir. John Wright.
Mr. Wright?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak with you.
Mr. Wright, have you got a camera?
I'm sorry, I do, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm in a really rough place in terms of.
That's
Can you
great.
see me?
Yeah, I do. Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I promise to tell the whole truth here.
And are you flying?
I am currently at the Lou Fuse Athletic Complex. I had to drop my daughter off for a lacrosse practice.
Okay. Now that we've seen you, you can turn your camera off.
Okay.
Proceed.
All right. Go ahead if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. I want to thank the board here for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm going to largely reiterate I'm not going to bother taking up your time reiterating what Mr. Stevens just said. He's largely stated what I needed to say. Again, we're not here because this is an ugly project. That's not. That's the reason it garnered the reaction that it did on Facebook. The problem is that the project it stands in the face of the original indenture and the original intent of Parkview's prohibition against walls. The only other thing I would like to add to what Mr. Stevens said is in regards to a slide that was presented during the course of the applicant's presentation.
We may have lost you if you're still speaking.
Mr. Wright, we can't hear you. We've lost him. He's in the room, but we've lost connection.
Let's give him a minute to try to reconnect.
And again, if there's anybody else in the room who does wish to speak, please put your name in the chat and you'll be.
Can you hear me now?
Here you are.
Yes.
Yep, we got you, John. Go ahead. Go ahead, John. John, we can't hear you, man. John, we're sorry. It's extremely garbled. We can't hear you. So. Yeah.
Okay, Bob, is there anybody else in the room?
Okay, again, last call. Anybody else want to speak? Want Everybody else.
Let
in
me
there.
see.
Oh,
Is
there
this
he is.
better?
Yes.
I apologize. I'm gonna try to stand in one place. The only thing I would add is that the plot of additional retaining walls surrounding this property, the walls that have been identified for the board, those walls, they do not look like the walls that were presented as examples of retaining walls in the neighborhood. All of the walls in question are set back from the street with the possible exception of some 2-foot sort of flower beds along it. As it currently sits, there are no retaining walls within either of the 2 blocks, either to the left or to the right of this property. Again, I would ask that this board uphold the director's decision.
Thank you very much. Bob, anybody else?
Okay, no, nobody else has time to speak, so that's it.
Bob, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I wanted the applicant to make his case before I really dove into just the aesthetics of it. You all saw the letters, so you got the history. Part of the issue with doing a wall that is so, that matches the house so closely, it does kind of give us a false sense of history in a way. Compatible design, sure, but somebody would see that wall and wonder if that's original with the building itself. Was it there when the neighborhood was designed? It does kind of present that kind of false sense and does kind of go against how Parkview was laid out. So it does kind of not compete with the main gates, but it does kind of present a bit of a dilemma. It's like, someone does see that wall. Is it original? Is it newer? Is it compatible? It's just, I want to make that point, but that was kind of said in the presentation, why he did that wall and that design to match the house. And to me, that kind of creates a bit of an internal conflict for, history. Calling it historic isn't necessarily accurate. It almost creates a false sense of history in a way. And I do want to note one thing here really quick, and I got to move again. I'm doing all the Zoom stuff, so bear with me, guys. Mr. Barton mentioned that the term slope doesn't ever appear. The word slope does not, but there is a reference in the document for the National Register, which was, by the way, in the mid-'80s. So those are very Spartan documents. Those nominations back in the '80s were very, very simple. They didn't get very detailed. But there is a reference to lawns being raised above the sidewalk level. That's in there. It denotes how it was laid out in a way. You have uniform setbacks, and front yards were raised above the sidewalk level. That's on like the 3rd page of the document. So it does denote that there were raised yards. It doesn't say slope, but it does about raised yards. And to get a raise, you need a slope. So it is actually in the document, although it is not the word slope itself. So it's kind of the same thing. Not to be argumentative, it's just I wanted to clarify that is in there. So any questions for me? That's all I wanted to say.
Commissioners, this concludes the testimony in this matter. Commissioner Richardson, today's your day. Have you got a motion?
I move that we uphold the director's denial of the permit to install the retaining wall in the front yard, as the proposal does not meet and comply with the Skinker Developer Historic District standards.
Is there a second? Chair seconds. Discussion? Commissioner Richardson?
The applicant's asking for a variance, but a variance should be if there's a hardship, if there's a financial hardship, or there's a practical hardship with respect to the property that it can't comply with the standards, and that's not the case here. And I would echo what our director said, that there's a lot of testimony about enhancing the historic character. What we want is preserving the historic character. We don't want to be creating additional character. So although it may be a fine looking wall, it doesn't comply with the historic district standards. And Bob was just talking about the National Register nomination here, but I don't really care what that says. What I care about is the ordinance, and the ordinance does talk about slope and says you're not supposed to change it, right, Bob?
That is correct.
Commissioner Richardson, I forgot to ask Olivia, would you repeat your motion for her, please?
Yeah, I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the permit to install a retaining wall in the front yard, as the proposal does not comply with the Skinker Developer Historic District standards.
And who seconded it?
You
Josh.
did.
I did. Good enough. Olivia, fine?
That's
Any
fine. You have a motion and a second.
Commissioners, any further discussion?
So, David, you mentioned something that the ordinance stated, but you were a little garbled there. Could you repeat that, please?
I was just saying that the ordinance the ordinance has the term earth terrace, and it talks about the earth terrace and its slope shall be maintained unaltered, and no new retaining wall shall be constructed parallel to the public sidewalk unless the majority of the properties on the block have been so altered or a ramp, right? And he actually testified that the 50% doesn't apply. And the officer says he doesn't meet that criteria. So, I mean, he's asking for a variance from that standard, but again, he's not the threshold to get a variance.
And you feel his testimony about erosion and lighting is wouldn't constitute a hardship in this case?
So can I talk to that a little bit? So the erosion issue, we create a point discharge when we start putting in retaining walls and under drains for the French drain of the back of the retaining wall, which doesn't get rid of the water. It just pushes it to the next property or wherever they daylight that system. And I just want to say another piece. I did visit the site and the property and a couple adjacent properties where there are retaining walls. There are a lot smaller, or there's situations where there is a grade change that there would be erosion control issue. A lot of those are near the center, was it called Center Avenue? So this isn't one of those cases where we have that issue. I think the 8-inch that we talked about earlier would be something that would be helpful. But there's also vegetation that was removed that kind of makes these situations worse, especially when putting in lawns. The site's really established right now. I'm not really sure the erosion issue is really there as a hardship. I did see some of the pavement, stones, some have settled. I know they replaced some to the south, near the light pole that we're actually looking at. But I think the ones that are holding water now have settled because of a large tree. So adding some context there, just from civil engineer standpoint, not really sure this retaining wall actually solves the issue. It's just maybe used here to, strengthen the argument.
And do you see an alternative solution to a retaining wall to help him with the erosion that he's experiencing?
I mean, I do. I think it goes back to putting in, a smaller 8-inch wall or 8-inch curb. You can do that with stones, granite or whatever you'd like. But I mean, the site's established. There's one corner near the adjacent property's driveway that looks a little, eroded, but I mean, there were trees and bushes that were taken out there. That was part of the testimony, and I'd looked at photos. There were things done that may have made some of this an issue. I'm not saying, it's their fault. I think, they wanted to make the property more, beautiful. And I think that's what happens. We kind of trial and error this stuff. But I think the 8-inch curb would help if they're really having erosion issues. I know it doesn't help with their lighting, but sorry. And then one more thing, I know they added stones near the steps. I think that's the idea, but you have to carry that over in, the full length of the property where you're having erosion issues. If you want to do that.
Okay, commissioners, we ready for a vote? Okay, Bob, call a roll.
David Richardson,
Yes.
Mike Colleen,
Yes.
Anthony Robinson,
Yes.
Stan Fowler,
Yes.
Alderman Ryan,
No.
Catherine Hamaker,
Yes.
Richard Callow.
Yes.
That's, the ayes have it, 1 against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 1 against.
Thank you, commissioners. Do we have any other business? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Hearing no objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you
Thank you
guys.
for your consideration. I appreciate it.
All right, and again, I will reach out to everybody about the the May meeting regarding the date change for the holiday. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you guys.